came here from Elmhurst in about 1870s at some time.
And I think historically at that time things were starting to boom in Chicago a little bit, and a lot of the people were coming up to Lake Geneva as a place when they were looking for a second home. And my understanding is that we bought on the South Shore next to the Hatch Farm, which later became Lake Geneva Country Club.
A cabin primarily used for fishing and hunting.
And there's always the story about that they won the house in a poker game.
But one of our Emery family members also gambled, and he lost the house.
So in reference to the card game about us losing the house, I've also heard the story told that that's actually how we obtained the house. It was actually a home down in Fontana area. But the guy, when he paid the bet, said, "Oh, you only won the house, you didn't win the property." So our great-great-grandfather actually bought property. It was almost, I think it was almost 125, 150 acres. And the way he got the house down there, from what I understand, is they propped it up and put it on a giant sleigh that they built, waited for it to freeze, and then they had horses pull the home down to the property over in near Trinky Estates and next to the country club. So which story is true, I have no idea. I've heard both, but I think it's an interesting part of our family history.
And they would get on a train in Elmhurst and they'd go into Chicago, and they'd get on the Northwestern train and they would get off in Harvard, Illinois. That was as far as it went at that time. And then they would get on a little trolley in Harvard and it came down to Fontana Beach. And they would get on a steamboat and go around to the lake to where they lived. This land was purchased from a man named Drury, I believe.
Abba's grandmother, Baba, and her husband were building this house in 1926, and her brother and his wife were building next door. And what I understand is that during the process of building, both husbands passed away. So it became a very matriarchal piece of property from the very, very beginning.
She was clearly the general of the family.
They all told her she had the worst piece of property because it was just a swamp. So she got a flatbed, horse-drawn flatbed, and they took the hill that was much higher here and put it all down there. That's what became the point.
But it was interesting to learn that there were trees all around the perimeter of the property with a marsh in the interior. So it wasn't just like filling in the lake, and it wasn't impossible. It was filling in something that had shallow water.
So as for the garden on Rainbow Point, what I understand is initially there were full-time gardeners who took care of the garden on Rainbow Point. We don't know if it's called Rainbow Point because of the colorful garden, or if it's called Rainbow Point because it's a peninsula at the end of Rainbow Bay.
This lot next door here, between here and the next house, was just a woods, and it belonged to Mr. Drury also. So she wrote Mr. Drury and asked if she could buy it. And he wrote back and he said, yes, $10,000, I'll sell you that lot. And she wrote back and said, no way, it's not worth that much money. I'll give you $5,000. And she did, and he took it, and that's how we happened to get this lot.
Relatively soon after that, they started building other homes for Janet, which was my grandmother. She was the oldest, and she had children, so they needed another home for that. So they built a home up the hill.
I lived up in the cottage that is now the Almonds Cottage. That was built in just before I was born, about 1928.
The next home that was built was for Aunt Dodie, which was Linda's mother.
And then her son Stuart was younger and had younger children, so they stayed in the house here with Baba. It got to be a little much for Baba to have these young ones underfoot, so that's when she said, hey Janet, why don't you come down here with your 3 older girls, and we'll send Stuart and his younger ones up the hill.
The Almonds moved up there, and my mother and father, she said, come down with me, because we were all more grown. And manageable. I was probably 8 or 9, or maybe 10.
I think I've always looked at the lake too as an incredible legacy. And I think as a couple and as a family, this is a piece of our legacy. It's just gathering together, seeing the importance of family, the importance of being outside in creation, just experiencing great joy.
When you spend every summer of your life, it becomes your home more than any other place because it's something that keeps the same and doesn't change.